Hi everybody, welcome back to Laura A Vlogs. I am doing this video. I have posted a video regarding about me having a mild heart attack. And so I wanted to share was the story of not so much the heart attack, but this is more of a video for parents to really pay attention to your kids' education and in continuous communication with your child. So I had mentioned in previous videos, especially my last one with my son, my younger son. So I had mentioned about that he's in last year of high school, and he's currently trying to finish up, his schooling. And I mentioned about him having an incident in September with one of the teachers. And so since September till now, till last Tuesday, things weren't resolved until that day hit. And I'll try my best not to get agitated. Sorry, I'm still a Latina. We're very fiery young women or older women. So I we had like it's called an IEP meeting. So basically it's a meeting they do once a year. And since my son gets special education services, it's basically a document that my son has disability in learning. So the teachers, the representative for the district, the guidance counselor, my son, and myself would have discussions about the plan for the coming year. And I could either agree or disagree, but it's pretty much very much a document to ensure that that child gets the services they need, and that the school will comply on that agreement. It's a legal document. And so unfortunately, when it came to last September, one of the teachers violated pretty much that document agreement. And unfortunately, I mentioned about the principal not reaching back to me after I sent an email regarding about the teacher's behavior. And since I already knew this meeting was coming up, sure enough, that topic was going to be raised. And so what happened was that my son's two teachers, one was a physics teacher and the other one was an economics teacher. They both were on the call, and my son was on the call too before the guidance counselor popped in. And then the physics teacher was telling me on how my son was not able to turn in his homeworks on time, and that he didn't understand why my son didn't explain to him or even approach him what's going on and all that stuff. And I mentioned to him, I said, listen, my son has been doing all the works for all the classes. And I mentioned about how it was embarrassing for him to approach this teacher. And I said, there was an incident that happened in September, and I wasn't naming the teacher in the class, but because just to give that person the respect, somewhat the respect. So I mentioned about how that one particular teacher violated my son's pretty much his right to get the extra help in the class. And so since that incident happened, my son became very embarrassed to approach any other teacher about needing help for any other classes. So unfortunately, from that one incident, it started to trickle onto the other classes in affecting the other classes' grades. And so that pretty much was like the straw that broke the camel's back, because now I knew that this was not a funny thing anymore. This is not something that I'm going to sweep it under the rug. And I was really nice to the two teachers, because we were having a very mature conversation, and one of the teachers has a disability. He has autism, but he's a very good teacher. And as I explained the situation that happened with my son, I saw the economics teacher that has the disability. I saw his face, like it hit him really hard, because he understands. And the physics teacher, he looked at me and he was just like, I'm sorry, this makes sense. This makes sense on why your son behaved the way he behaved. And so I mentioned about, if I wanted to escalate this situation, I emailed the principal to wanting to have a meeting, and I never got a response. So he turned around and said, well, maybe she was pregnant and maybe she didn't see it. I said, no, I said that twice. I'm not dumb. And I mentioned about how I'm a Latina, because unfortunately, when it comes to, certain schools, even in the city of New York, racism is still very much alive. And I might be light-skinned, but at the end of the day, my son is dark-skinned. We're Latinos. They assume that everybody comes from the same pot. Uneducated, ghetto, and that they don't know anything. And unfortunately, that is a stigma that is really disgusting. We should not be categorized because of who or where we come from, or how we look, or how we act. We are human beings. And so I mentioned it. I said, listen, don't underestimate this Latina. Because, I'm not putting myself above everybody, but I am putting myself as the parent of that child. I said, I'm not a first-time parent. I have been through this road many times before. I had this type of services done to my older son. So I do know my rights very well. I said, what that teacher did violated my son's rights. I could have turned around. I know people from the media. I know people, I have family members that work in the city government that have direct connections with City Hall. I could have used those resources to prove a point. But I didn't do that, because I wanted to resolve this issue, civilized. So as I was mentioning that, the guidance counselor, popped in. And next thing you know, he started the conversation. Yeah, your son, he's doing very well. And I know there was a slight incident that happened in September, and that's when I lost my shit. That's when I pretty much laid it out. So as I'm, expressing how disgusted I felt with the treatment that my son has gotten and I have gotten from this school, I was starting to experience the heart attack happening. And so I mentioned about how, that this principal did not want to even acknowledge that there was a problem. I feel really disrespected as a parent to see my son on a daily basis upset about how this school wants him to fail. And so I told him, I was like, I want this situation rectified. I want the situation rectified because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if my son is a Latino, dark skin, or white skin. He deserves to be treated with respect and to graduate successfully. And so he turned around and said that that by him looking at all the grades from the time he started high school till now, he is way above the grade point average. He's telling me that he will be graduating with a Regents diploma. And then a lot of people who are from other countries wondering what's a Regents diploma. Basically, it is a diploma. Like, there's different levels of diploma. There's a regular diploma from high school saying, yeah, you graduated from here, and that's pretty much it. Then you have the second Regents, which means that you will get partial scholarship of, to a college of your choice. And then the Regents diploma is the full scholarship that he will receive in the future once he graduates. So my son will be graduating with in the Regents diploma. But I told them, I said, between now and towards the end of the year, I want to make sure that my son stays focused and help him at the need of graduating. I said, because at the end of the day, that one teacher should not feel that all he has to do is his job. He is required to do his job. It's not a favor I'm asking him. That's not a favor, because if my tax dollars, I might not be working, but I worked a lot of years and I pretty much put my tax dollars into the system in this city. If my tax dollars goes into his pocket, he is required by a contract to provide the education service to every student, regardless of race and color, and give them the proper education that he is required. And so the guidance counselor was like, oh, I promise you, we're going to rectify the situation. I said, please do. Please do. Because the final thought that I left in his, for him to think about was, no kid should be in school and feeling that they can't succeed. No words should come out of any child's mouth saying this school wants me to fail. That should not be the words of affirmation for any child. Make sure that my son succeeds. And then he was like, oh, okay, I'm going to have the principal email you. I said, please don't. Please don't. I said, because I have no respect for her. I have no need to even speak to her. I will not respond to any emails that she's going to throw in my way. Sure enough, he did speak to her. And right away, she emailed me the next day. So she sent me like 3 emails. But since I'm not feeling well, I have no intentions to open it and read it. no matter the amount of apologies that she wants to send. So the agreement was that that my son will continue getting special services if he decides to go to college in the future. They are required in the college admissions office for him to get the extra help. So that is the agreement, and I agree to it. Now, it ended well, but I'm gonna say this to the parents: listen to the conversations that your kids try to have with you. Question them. How these teachers are. How are you being treated by school officials? Because I had a recent conversation with my son, and he mentioned something that is very disturbing trend, and it's really disgusting, that kids like him, or kids that is not in special education, that just happens to have a hard time learning, these kids, regardless of color and race, are being segregated from other kids just because they are not meeting the criteria of scores in their grades. That is a very fucked up way of treating our children. Because at the end of the day, regardless the behavior they have, because kids are kids, they're gonna act like teenagers and stupid and running around and making silly jokes that are very inappropriate. I mean, we all did it when we were teenagers, so we are not the exception. But at the end of the day, they're still children. And if they are struggling in these classes, and the behavior of the teachers and administrators are putting down this type of mentality for other kids to segregate and alienate that one child because they can't seem to meet up the expectations, report their asses. I told my son, I said, don't you ever listen to that nonsense. If that child needs help, if your classmates needs help, and you know the topic of the subject, you help that friend. But don't you ever listen to that nonsense from anybody. Because at the end of the day, these are our children that we have to protect. I'm getting angry. As you can see, I think my blood pressure is going up, but I need to calm down. But it's just a very disturbing trend, because I believe that in my son's school, they try to do is try to make it more specialized. Make it more specialized school. So they're going to start weeding out the kids who are not meeting up the criteria. And it's all due to funding. That's all it is. It's a matter of funding. And you know what? We have to nip it in the bud with school administrators. Because at the end of the day, these are our children. They deserve the respect and the education they are having to, they're required to have. And I think parents, please conversate with your kids. Listen to how they talk about school administration, a school administrator, and teachers, and even other students. Because I do it. I'm not going to say here I'm the perfect parent that I listen to every single conversation, because sometimes he comes out with the dumbest things. I'm like, I don't want to hear it. But when it comes to serious subjects like this, just do it. Okay? So, yeah. that is pretty much it. I got through it. And now I'm going to try to rest. Alrighty, so thank you for viewing this video. And I will see you guys soon in my next video. Bye.